Hey everybody, Johnny Cage here, welcoming you back to another game review. This time we're taking a look at For the King, developed by Iron Oak Games and Warp Digital, published by Iron Oak, Curve Digital, and Merge Games, released February 28th, 2017 on multiple platforms, including the Nintendo Switch, which is the version I will be playing. For the King markets itself as a combination of roguelike, tabletop, and adventure genres. An ambitious combination to be sure, but does it deliver on all that in the execution? Let's find out. Starting up, the game displays first and foremost a disclaimer which goes on to tell the player the type of experience they're getting themselves into, reminding them that not only is this game meant to be experienced over multiple play sessions before completing it, but also that your adventure can take a turn for the worse quite suddenly. But don't get discouraged if this happens. Take what you learned and try again. The main menu will list off the standard fare, as well as online co-op, which is an always appreciated feature, though while recording footage for this review, all I could really find was a few locked games that were going on. What earns this game its roguelike tag is the lore store. Throughout your adventure you will acquire lore points, which are commonly procured by completing quests, and once your game has ended, one way or another you can exchange these points for new locations that can randomly appear on the map, new character classes, or new items that you can loot off enemies or purchase from stores. You are going to quickly realize this game plays a lot like a D&D style campaign, and as such there are a lot of different keywords that can be thrown around which can be quite confusing. Luckily, either in the menu or in the game itself you can pull up an incredibly robust encyclopedia which should be able to answer your questions, though it may take a while to track down the answers you are looking for. Jumping into a new game will present you with 3 different campaigns for you to choose from for your adventure, whether it's attempting to solve a king's murder, braving the cold in a wonderland of terror, or sailing the high seas. Each option is just different enough to encourage you to try out all of them. On top of those campaigns, you also have the options of going on a dungeon crawl full of random encounters, making your way through Hildebrand's Cellar in an endurance mode, or go on the online co-op Gold Rush mode, where a special lore store awaits the winner of the hunt. Regardless of which adventure you choose, more of it will become fleshed out depending on the difficulty level you prefer, making adjustments to the lore payout, economy inflation, and enemy health amongst other things. Finally, you'll decide if you want to go at it alone, or opt for the online or local co-op. Now to make the important decision of the classes of your party members and whether or not you'll be running a 2 or 3 person party. At first there will be 4 classes to choose from, with another 4 that can be bought at the lore store, and 3 more that must first be encountered on the world map for them to become available. These classes are for the most part a bit of a deviation from what you might find in most role-playing games, but at least you can always check the class info for a thorough rundown of the strengths and weaknesses of each choice. Once you're happy with your choice, there are a few more customization options that can be made if you so choose, and when you're all set, it's time to create the game. Our journey begins with a quick rundown of the current situation, and where your party will begin their quest, providing you with the first objective indicated with a location marker, and reminder of your main quest in the top right, with side quests appearing in the top left, should you choose to accept any. From here you'll notice that instead of your team moving as one, which is the case in most RPGs, each character will move independently of another, allowing characters to pursue different objectives, which can help cover ground more quickly, though you must be cautious in splitting the party as characters can get ambushed and will only be able to draw in help from nearby hexes, meaning you can run into situations where you are at quite a disadvantage. While allowing characters to move individually is a standout mechanic for the game, I do wish that if you were playing in solo mode you had the option to move as a party, especially since movement on each turn is randomly determined based off a class's speed stat. This can lead to the slower characters falling behind and perhaps wasting turns for them to catch up with the rest of the group. Speaking of turns, the top bar displays each day represented by 14 blocks, with the bar progressing 1 block after each character has completed their actions. Also here you'll find 2 sets of hexagons, the right one displaying your life pool, which is the number of revives you have available, and the left one filling up with chaos should it ever begin to overtake the world. This chaos is indicated on the time bar with a spiky skull, and should you not be able to fight it off before it reaches the far left, it will fill one of those hexagons. And if all 3 hexagons get filled, it is game over. Though just like with obtaining lore, you can drive it down the timeline by completing main quests. It's worth mentioning that both the chaos rate and the life pool are determined when selecting difficulty. Encounters in the game are usually plain to see on the world map, but there is also the distinct possibility of them just randomly popping up. Whenever you run across an enemy or event, you will first be prompted with a few options on how you want to proceed with the encounter, and can use a character's focus to influence the encounter to shift the outcome more in your favor. Focus is another major mechanic of the game, and is indicated through hexagons just above the characters' portraits at the bottom of the screen, with characters geared more towards magic attacks generally having more available. Usually for a combat encounter, anyone can use their focus to either ambush or sneak past a baddie, though you will sometimes run into a situation where the character involved doesn't have a high enough stat in the needed attribute to influence the outcome. Focus can also be used during combat to increase the accuracy of an attack or skill to guarantee the action succeeds when you might just need it most, and can be used in the overworld to provide you with additional movement as well. And if you get a bit too focus happy, it really isn't a big deal, as there are consumables that will help you to regain it, and you could just stop by a town and use their services, which offer a variety of healing to meet your needs, such as full health or focus, a little bit of both, and even a curse removal if you need it. Though be aware that using these services will auto-end your turn, so pick up any side quests or market items you might need first. So how about that combat? It really wouldn't be a tabletop game without it, now would it? And this game does feature the classic turn-based system, with turn order displayed at the top of the screen, and the actions and accuracy slots for each of those determined by the weapon that you have equipped. And this is where I had one of my biggest issues with the game, which is that the character's build is very strongly based on the weapon that you have equipped, and it will solely determine the skills that you can use. This can lead to more than a few disappointing situations where you know you have to increase your damage output to keep up with the enemies, but you also don't want to give up a really nice skill set. Some people will appreciate the strategic choices you have to make when this inevitably happens, but I would have preferred a bit more of a classic system where at least a few of your skills that you had were tied to your class and maybe reached a particular level. But as the disclaimer and box cover warn you, this game is a roguelike, so sometimes you just have to roll with what you get. For the King utilizes just about every button there is on the controller, though the very bottom of the screen usually displays what actions you have available for your given situation, and given the slow turn-based nature of the gameplay, you aren't in a rush to make any split-second decisions. In the looks department, the designers are going for a low poly art style, which I have remarked on before being a big fan of, especially when it comes to the racing genre, but where those racing games usually run at 60 frames per second and have vibrant colors that pop out, the more toned down color palette of this game leaves me wishing they would have gone with a different art direction. Unfortunately, the audio doesn't fare that much better, with the main source of it being something that you might hear in the background at a Renaissance fair playing over the world map, but at least it does fit with the fantasy element, though there isn't much more to speak of it than that. The game does seem to rely quite a bit on its use of sound effects more than anything, so this is one game where you're going to want to provide your own soundtrack while playing. For the King will set you back $25 American with a file size of 1.1 gigabytes, and the value of this one is really tough to gauge. I don't think I've reviewed a game that you are either going to love or hate more than this one. The problem as I see it is the combination of genres at hand here, which ironically is also its greatest selling point. On one hand you have the tabletop genre, which is generally slow and plodding, where players take their time to mathematically annihilate their opponents and take great pride in building up their characters and making them their own. And on the other hand, with roguelikes who are looking for a quick and fulfilling experience where your characters are disposable and having to restart is just par for the course. To be fair, the game isn't super long, probably about 6 to 8 hours for most players, and while that's definitely not roguelike length, it is manageable at least in a single day. Also, if your current run isn't going as you had hoped, you can quit and still retain the lore points that you picked up to use in the store. One suggestion I typically would not make in a review is picking this game up on Steam. Sure, it is $5 cheaper, but more importantly, you can play it for up to 2 hours and still get a full refund if it isn't for you, and unfortunately that isn't a choice on the Switch. Despite how negative I might have sounded at times in this review, I do feel like the developers did a great job of meshing two very hard to blend together genres, and while on vacation a couple weeks ago, I did find myself diving deep into this game and enjoyed it even more than I had previously. I'm going to go ahead and give For the King a loot strumming 6.5 out of 10, but like I said, give this one a try yourself if you can, because I'm sure there are plenty of gamers out there that could consider this one of their favorites, especially if it looks like something that you'd be interested in. Just keep in mind the disclaimer at the start of the whole thing. The experience can be quite a roller coaster, but knowing that going in should help ease any frustration. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you would like to stay posted on new game reviews as I upload them, please click the subscribe button, as well as checking out the link in the description below for my Twitch channel where I stream most days. I'll talk to you all later on.